where one man might be chasing another or try to kill the other, and that God is saying, okay, I'll let you be the big winner, I'll let you chase 1,000 of them away, or 2 of you 10,000. But here he is really saying, spiritually, with our prayers, we can chase away Satan and the enemy and all these problems from our family, our country, our church. And then also, there was a message in tongues. Jerry spoke in tongues. Then it says, God said, if you draw nigh to me, I will draw nigh to you. So I thought, there are so many amazing things about God that you could not talk about them all. But I picked out a few. And another amazing thing that I think is the clouds. When you really think about a cloud over your head. And I think they're beautiful, a big beautiful white cloud. Of course, I've seen the black ones rolling in. But in the King James Version, in Job 26, verse 8, it says, he, meaning God, bindeth up the water in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not rent under them. The New International Version of Job 26:8 reads like this. He, meaning God, wraps up the waters in his clouds, yet the clouds do not burst under their weight. Now, in my mind, I understood more when it said the clouds do not burst under the weight of this water. But I just think of fluffy, light clouds up in the sky, they're floating around just like they are featherweight. But really, if you look up the word cloud, there is the air is full of vapor and a water vapor. And this water vapor is inside of these clouds. So you know that this water vapor turns to liquid water. Of course, that's called condensation. And after this water vapor's in the cloud so long, and it changes to the liquid water, these little droplets of water are all inside of that cloud. Then as these little droplets combine to each other, then finally it gets heavy enough that the raindrop will fall down on our heads. And that is the rain. But here is what really I think is amazing about that. When I look at a cloud, I actually think, how does that water keep from coming out like a bucket on your head? You would not enjoy a bucket of water coming down on your head. But there is days that you can enjoy the rain so much. I think rain is beautiful. As a matter of fact, I collect umbrellas because I think they're so pretty. And Sandy has a picture of people, it raining in the picture, and them all having umbrellas. But I just think it's amazing. I really think it's amazing that God can make that cloud look like featherweight, and we get the raindrops on our head instead of a big splash from a bucket. But then there's another thing that amazes me about God. I know all of you guys have gone to the ocean, and you stand on the beach, and you look out at the ocean. I think the ocean is so beautiful on one hand, but on the other hand, it's so powerful, it's so scary. And have you ever stood on the beach and you look out at that ocean and you think, it does not look like it would have an end. So if I would be out there swimming, I do not think I would make it. So it's like a fear almost comes over me when I see the ocean, even though I'm enjoying it. And those waves look like they're so big. And in my mind, I thought, if there was a ship out there, that wave could cover that ship, much less cover me as a person. But if you notice, God has used the sand to stop this ocean. Of all things, little tiny grains of sand. I think it's amazing that he would use little tiny grains of sand to stop the ocean. And by the time that big, huge wave that you're looking out there and thinking, dear God, don't let it get near me, it comes to the sand, it looks like a little splash. And sometimes it looks like even little bubbles around it, and you just stand there just as safe as can be. And I think that is amazing. So in Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 22, God says, Fear you not me, saith the Lord? Will you not tremble at my presence, which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea by a perpetual decree? Perpetual means everlasting, not changing. Decree means command. So he has set a never-changing command here that it cannot pass it, and though the waves thereof toss themselves, yet can they not prevail. Though they roar, yet can they not pass over it. And have you ever noticed it seems like the ocean just makes a noise all day long? It does roar, you know, it just don't stop. So, and then in Job chapter 38 and verse 8, God actually uses the word door as being symbolic, that he's going to stop those waters. And so in Job 38 and 8, the Lord is speaking to Job. He says, or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth as if it had issued out of the womb? Then in Job 38:1, here God is actually talking to the sea. He said, hitherto shall thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud waves be stayed. He said, hitherto means right here is as far as you can go, and your proud waves are not going to go any further. When I try to explain the ocean, I would use 1,000 words trying to explain, just like I did in the beginning. When I'm looking out at the ocean, I look at those big waves. But God uses that one word, proud waves. I think he described the ocean in 2 words, proud waves. But he said, hitherto, can you go no further? So in Proverbs 8:29, it says, when he gave to the sea his decree, meaning his unchanging command, that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth. This scripture in Proverbs is really referring to the book of Genesis, when he started separating the water, and he called the water the seas and the earth, the dry land earth. And it says in Genesis 1, and now we got to remember too, this is just his command and his words. In Genesis 1:9-10, and it said, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place. He's getting this water under control. And let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called the seas, and the God saw that it was good. I thought, yeah, I think that was good. Because when I look at that ocean, I thought, thank you, God, for stopping that ocean, not letting it come on and cover more of the land or cover me. So, yes, it was good when he gathered the water all together under control and gave them command. You can go no further. And then there was, to me, that is just amazing, you know, when you look at the ocean. And then in Job chapter 38:22, God is speaking to Job about snow and hail. And if you really stop and think about this is amazing. So it says, he's talking to Job, and he's saying to Job, hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? Or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? In other words, when you think about somebody having a treasure, it's stored up someplace. And he's saying, Job, have you ever been in my treasure department of my snow and hail? And he's saying, if I take a notion, I can bring this hail out of my treasure, and I can cast it down and use it actually in battle. And I thought, and my Bible ran a reference to that, to Joshua chapter 10, verse 11. And this is where the Israelite people are having a battle with the kings of the Amorites. And listen to what it says. Joshua 10:11. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. And they were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. So here is a chapter in the Bible where he's actually showing us that he used hell to help fight for the Israelite people. And when you really think about it, that is amazing to think that he could do this, because if two people are fighting, there would have to be times it looks like they'd be close to each other, and he might, you'd think, well, he'd have to be aiming at the enemy, because it looks like some of the Israelite people would have gotten killed. I thought, that is just amazing. And then in Job 40:9, God is talking to Job again, and he asked him another question. Well, I guess as you can tell, I've been reading in Job. My daughter and a niece of mine have been doing a Bible study together, and we've been in Job. And the next question that he asked Job was, hast thou an arm like God, or canst thou thunder with a voice like him? And I mean, it's just amazing, I think, if we would hear God's voice. I feel like God speaks to me in my mind, but I don't hear a literal voice out here. And I think sometimes if we'd hear God's voice, it would scare us to death. But in Psalms 29:4, it says, the voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. Psalms 147:15, he sendeth forth his command upon the earth. When he's sending forth his command upon the earth, this means he's sending his word, and his word runneth very swiftly. He's looking down on earth, and he's decided, I'm going to send some words down on the earth, and here's what I'm going to say. So in verse 16, he giveth snow like wool, he scattereth the hoarfrost like ashes, he casteth forth his ice like morsels. Who can stand before his cold? So he's decided. He has said, let it snow. And I thought, we use that phrase so much, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Well, I think that phrase came from God, because at his command, he's saying, I'm looking down on earth, and this is command that and my words going to run swiftly over the earth, and this is command I'm saying today, let it snow. But then, in verse 18, he sendeth out his word. Let's read that again. He sendeth out his word and melteth them, and he causes his wind to blow and waters flow. So after winter is over, and he causes the snow to melt and the ice to melt, at his command, the waters will flow. But I really feel like that when we get to heaven, that God's voice will be as much part of heaven as walking on the streets of gold. And I can't wait to hear God's voice, because sometimes I thought, I wish I'd hear God's voice now, but I really am afraid that if I would hear his voice, I'd probably faint. So, but I do think that will be just amazing, just to hear God's voice. And a few people have said that they've heard God's voice, and I think that's amazing that they have. And but then there is another thought in the Bible that I thought, this is amazing. I mean, why would God say this? Have you ever considered to go to an insect, watch that insect's life, and think, I'm going to pattern my life after that insect? I thought, no, never crossed my mind. But as you know, God tells us to go to the insect ant and watch that insect and actually learn some life skills from an insect. A little tiny insect like that. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. So in Proverbs 30:24, listen to what it says. Let's read about what the ant does and what it says, and consider the ant's ways for our lives. If you can even imagine that. To me, I thought it was hard to imagine. Yeah, let's consider the ant. Proverbs 30:24. There are 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. The ant are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. This verse is really telling us that an ant is wise. As a matter of fact, it says exceeding wise. And if you look up the word exceeding, it means very wise, extremely wise. And I thought, that's amazing. How big could that little brain be in there? You know, God's just made the ant like that. But then listen to what it says in Proverbs 6:6. It says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, and consider her ways and be wise. So this is another amazing statement. God is actually telling us, go to that ant, watch what this ant does, and you will be wise. This little ant is that wise. So the next thing we have to do is think, what does an ant do? So if you really read about an ant is a very, very hard worker. They do not stop. One time we had ants on our porch, and I purposely put a little block in front of them and to see if they would stop. They went around the block and they kept going. So I purposely went up ahead and moved the little block up there. They went around the block. And I thought, they do not use any kind of excuses like, this is too hard. Look what this human has done. Put a block right in our way. No, they just keep striving on and working hard. And they really are self-motivated. They don't have to have a pep talk. A lot of times we as people have to have pep talks. I love pep talks. It makes me feel better. But these ants don't have a leader or a guide or anything. They're self-motivated. So another thing we got to consider here is they don't make excuses like, oh, I'm not very smart. Oh, I'm so little. And look at this location God has given me. There's a big block right in my way. Well, they just go around it. So, but there's a second thing we have to consider here when he says, consider the ant. He is directly talking to someone that he calls a sluggard. So then we have to think, what is a sluggard? Let's look it up. So I did. Of course, I thought I knew what a sluggard was, but sometimes if you look stuff up, you get a more vivid picture in your mind, because the dictionary might have a few more meanings that your mind don't have. So a sluggard is a lazy person. And you might think, I'm not lazy, I'm just having some bad luck. Well, the ant don't say that. They go around their block. So, and it also is somebody who lounges a lot and is sleepy and slow moving. They're a loafer. So, laziness keeps us in a state of always lacking or needing. And if you notice too, what it said this ant does. This ant worked in the summer and stores up its food, so when winter comes and you can't plant food, they have enough food to hold them to the next summer. But then I thought, well, God, I know what consider means. Consider means to think. But God says, consider the ant. So I'm thinking, I'm going to look up the word consider, because I want my mind open to the meaning of words as much as I can get. You wouldn't believe how sign language has opened my mind up to words. If you really know what a word means, words are wonderful. Words are so interesting. Words can open your mind to so much stuff if you really get to understand the meaning of the word. You understand what I mean? Words are just something else. And God says, consider the ant. Okay, now let's look up the word consider. It means think carefully about something, typically before making a decision. So he's saying, think about the ant, consider this ant, and see what it's doing. Then make your decision what you should be doing. So, and he's really speaking to the lazy person. Anyone want to make a comment? Travis is making all his comments to Leah back there. Leah.
No,
So,
I do want to make a comment.
go ahead, Trav. I knew you had a comment whispered in her ear.
Yeah. But if you, I've not been a lot of places in this world, you know, up and down the East Coast, basically is it, but I was in Valdosta, Georgia a few years ago, and with Leanne, we went out into this marshy area. I can't remember the name of it, but it's so much different than here.
Oh, yes.
The whole, yeah, the amazingness and the awesomeness of God. You can look at this world and this creation and
It's
and
amazing.
see God in everything, how beautiful,
Yes.
from, 8 hours south of here to 8 hours north of here, how different things are. And it's amazing how awesome God is. And you can see him in everything that we look at when we go over to the New River Gorge Bridge and look around there, or wherever we go down to the coast. I mean, God is in everything. You can see God in everything.
Oh, yes.
That we see.
It is amazing, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I married David, and we lived the first 5 years of our marriage, we just left his house sitting there when we worked there for us to come back and forth as we pleased without having to pay for a motel. Louisiana is so swampy and so different, and alligators and stuff like that. Fresh fish, which is wonderful, that I almost felt like I was in another country from West Virginia. When they named us hillbillies, they really got the right name. But I couldn't give up hillbilly West Virginia for nobody. Those Cajuns are a little wild down there, I'll tell you that right now. They really are. But the other day, I was reading this article about Moses, and I thought, gosh, I never thought about this. This is amazing. The man who wrote the article said there was 5 brave women in Moses' life. And I thought, I've never sensed that there was 5 brave women in Moses' life. And of course, he names them, and he tells why he thought they were brave. So the first 2 women that he mentions was Shiphrah and Puah, the midwives who delivers the babies. And as you know, the king of Egypt, in Exodus 1, 15, 16, and 17, the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and seat them upon the stools, and if it be a son, then you shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not, as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. I thought, they feared God too much to obey this king. I thought, man, there's a bunch of people now doing abortions that does not seem to be afraid to abort any children and fear God. And in those days, a king just might not like your looks, Aaron, and decide off with the head. You're not a pleasant person. I don't care for you. And he could say, kill this person, and nobody would say nothing, and he would not go on trial. So these women really run the risk of being killed by the king. And of course, when the king called their hand on it, they made the excuse and said that the Hebrew women were lively, the babies were born before they got there. So they did cover themselves. And God did bless them. I don't have this scripture, but I'm pretty sure did it say that God gave them houses because to bless them for not aborting the children. But then the second woman he said was powerful was Miriam, Moses' sister. And I asked Miriam how he spelled his name, because every time I said Marion, I was thinking, but he is M-A-R-O-N, right? He's Marion. He said, this is Marion. So I've got that straight now. So when Moses' mother could not hide him any longer, and this was brave of her to hide her child too, because really, the king could say, you disobeying my order, and if she was caught hiding this chair, it could have been the death of her and her child. And after she hid him for 3 months and she could not hide him anymore, as you know the story, she made this little ark and she put him in the Nile River. And according to the commentaries that I have read, they do not have alligators in the Nile, they have crocodiles. And they say crocodiles are 2 times bigger than the alligators, and that they have a pointed snout, where regular alligators like we have in Florida are supposed to have the square looking a snout, and said they are more vicious and more aggressive than alligators, so the crocodiles are. So really and truly, if you stop and think about it, I would have been hesitant about putting my baby in a little ark in the Nile, because I thought, well, They might not come here and just literally kill him, but I bet a crocodile might have a nice lunch. So she had a lot of things she had to consider, but she was running her chances. She was being brave, and I'm sure she's asked God, please take care of my child. So what she does, she sends Moses' sister along the river, saying, now you watch what happens to your brother. And so in Exodus 2 and 4, and it said, this means Moses' sister, and his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. So at this time, you know, Pharaoh's daughter comes down to bathe herself, and she sees the baby, and she picks up the little basket to see what's in there. So the minute Miriam sees that Pharaoh's daughter has this baby, she jumps up real fast with a plan. And I thought, she's had to think of this plan on the spur of the moment, because she did not know what was going to happen to this baby. And so she jumps up real fast after she sees that, and I thought, this does make her a brave little girl. And this made her a little girl that I feel like God was preparing to be an adult woman to work with Moses and her brother for leading the people out of Israel. If she had been a shiftless little girl and had not done right, I really think that her life would not have been blessed to God to been in the number with Moses and Aaron to lead the people out. If she acted silly and done silly things, you know. So she jumps out then from where she's hiding, and in Exodus 2:7, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Of course, Pharaoh's daughter answers her in verse 8, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go, and the maid went and called the child's mother. So look how amazing this is, that his own mother is going to get to nurse him. And but I think it is also amazing, and I've heard this mentioned many, many times, and I'm sure you have heard it, that Pharaoh is trying to kill all these male children, and the very one that needed to be killed, he could kill that one and save the rest of them. The joke was on him from God. Not only are you not going to kill him, but you're going to feed him, you're going to clothe him, and you're going to educate him. And I thought, man. So then in Exodus 2:6, it says, when she, meaning Pharaoh's daughter, had opened it, meaning the ark of the bulrushes, that Moses was in, she saw the child, and behold, the child wept. Could you imagine if you saw this little pretty baby crying, how your heart would go out and you'd want to get it in your arms and try to pat it and say, please don't cry? And in Exodus 2:2, it describes Moses as being a goodly looking child. If you look up goodly, it means pretty. And then in the New Testament, in Acts chapter 7, verse 20, it describes him as a fair child. Now, many times we use the word fair to mean fair skin, but you can also, fair can mean pretty or good looking. So believe it or not, Moses was a pretty baby. If he was not pretty, God would have told us so. And I think Pharaoh's daughter has looked at that little baby. I could just see how she'd want. And goodly can also mean abundant. Like, oh man, they got a lot of goodly wealth. I mean, abundant wealth. In my mind, I even see him sort of like a little chubby baby. I mean, I'm not talking overly fat, but I thought a little soft chubby baby that you really want to squeeze real good. So, and in Exodus 2:6, it says, meaning Pharaoh's daughter, she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. I just think it, and then in Exodus 2:10, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. I really think it is possible to love other people's children as much as you love your own. I know I've said this 1,000 times, but when I got Philip, he was 3 months old, and when I looked into his little face, I wanted to keep him. I loved him. I have tried to be so fair between Mark and Philip that when he first came into the family, I marked something. I bought Philip the same thing, just in a different color. But then finally one day they said, "We are not twins. Stop this. We don't appreciate it." So I thought, well, good. They had to make it easier on me. I just didn't want to make a difference in you. But I think it is possible that people can get other people's children and love them with all her heart. He said she had compassion on him. But here's another thing that really is amazing about Moses. After he gets to be older, and God is telling him to lead the people out, who do you think is working with him? His own brother and his own sister, Aaron and Miriam. And I thought, God moved people in and out of Moses' life that was such a help to him. Like the midwives, his sister. His mother was a godly mother. He had a wonderful mother. And I thought, then their very enemy that was going to kill them looks at him with compassion and says, "I love you. I can't let you be killed. I want to keep you." And then the very people in Acts 7:22, and Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deed. The very people who should have killed him educated him and gave him wisdom. And so many times I think that then there's his father-in-law, Jethro. He was actually a Midianite priest, if I'm pronouncing that. I can't find my word there, but I think it was Midianite, wasn't it, if I pronounced it right. And he comes and sees Moses. Well, at this time, according to commentaries, there's about 2 million people, Israelite people there. And he is trying to sit there day and night and judge every situation to what the people should do. And his father-in-law said, what time is it, Aaron? His father-in-law said, "This is going to wear you out, Moses. Let me give you a little bit of advice." He said,
12.
okay, I got a few minutes in. He said, "This is good." No, that's about the end of about 12 minutes and I'm at the end. Somebody's going to have to make some comments. Anyway, he said, "Why don't you choose some trustworthy men and men who would not take dishonest gain for money, and capable men who really serve God, and let them help you. And then with the bigger cases, they can come to you and not wear yourself out." Have you ever seen one person have so many good people come through their life as Moses and help him? I mean, the women all helped him, his sister helped him, his brother worked with him, his sister worked with him, his father-in-law gives him good advice. But now there's another thing we can learn about this father-in-law things. You know, you might not think your father-in-law was the best human on earth, but there's times even in-laws, like a father-in-law, could give you some good advice. But on the flip side, there are some bad people can come in your life and help destroy your life. I knew this girl, and now this is a true story, and I'm not making it up. I worked in the school system for 20 years, and the last 7 years I was in Liberty High School. And sometimes when these kids would just walk by and I'd look at them, I thought, I think I'm going to be nauseated. I think I'm going to be sick of the choices they were making. And I thought, don't they know? And I thought, no, they don't know. But there was this girl who liked this boy. I won't call her name or the boy's name. And she actually got a message at church saying, if you marry that boy, he will destroy your life. You always have to ask God, is this companion good for me or is it not? So that girl, praise God, chose, okay, if that's what God says, I will not like him. And she got another boyfriend and married him. He is the best Christian man you ever met in your life. And I thought, at least one of them was smart enough to choose. You really have to ask God, who should I marry? Who should I hang around with? If you hang around with fools, you're going to become a fool. If you hang around with wise people, you're going to become a wise person. Moses had some of the most wonderful people come through his life. And this is another true story, and I will tell you in general who it's about, but I just won't use their name. When I was married to my first husband, his brother was married to the most grouchy, hateful woman I think ever walked on 2 feet. But he started acting just like her. He was so grouchy, and I thought, what is wrong with this man? He didn't used to act like this. He was so grouchy and hateful that there was a couple of times, a couple of people in the family says, well, not only am I going to forget her, but he can go along with her. He's getting as bad as her. But she got so grouchy and hateful, one day she decided I'm going to divorce him. Not realizing that some of us was thinking, oh God, are you really going to do that favor to him? so she did divorce him. I mean, she just made his life miserable, and he was acting as miserable as she was. So after they divorced, he met this other woman, and she was always laughing, she was always upbeat, and they got married. He met her at work, and his personality changed to the point that people in the family now are saying, can one person affect a person's life to that point that he was just like her to grouch, then get a nice person and now he's turned nice? People can really affect your life. People can make you miserable, or people can uplift you. And
well, the Bible says that he's talking about kids, that they can learn their ways.
Yes.
So we know
Yes.
that's true.
He was hateful when he had a hateful wife, and now he's all nice. That more than one person in the family, because even though my husband's dead, this is my kids' uncles and aunts, so I still deal with them. As a matter of fact, we went to North Carolina a week back or 2 weeks back. It must have been 2 weeks before Mom passed away. We actually had dinner with her and him, and even the family, a couple other people in the family sitting there, even after it's over, they think, is this him? Is he acting like this now from the way that he was? I don't think we realize what people we let in our life will treat us in such a way that it affects our thinking and how we think. And when it comes to something so important, who you should marry, you definitely better be praying, God, should I deal with this person? Should I marry this person?
Brenda, what you were saying long ago, and it's not, that's what you thought about Moses being put in the bulrush
Yeah.
near fall. I don't think it was by chance. I think that's what God led her to do during those 3 months. She was holding on to him, and God gave her this plan. That's why Miriam was sent to watch to see
Yes.
what went on.
I
I think it was God's plan to put Moses in this position. The very people that wanted to destroy all males trained him, educated him.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it, but at that time, Tish asked me the other day about doctors in the Old Testament, but at that time, Egypt had the greatest education
Yes.
of any other nation around. Egypt did.
Yes.
Because of the things that they taught and different things, astrology and different ones and different things, but
Oh, they had so many.
they had
gods.
a lot of things, and Moses was trained in all this. And if you study, it talks about secular things, and it gives one commentary, talks about he was even a general in the army of Egypt, leading
Yes, I
the
think he's
different
had
things.
that training.
He
Yes.
had that training,
And to learn to be a leader.
yeah, because
Yes.
he was what would it be? He was King Pharaoh's sister's sons, which would be his nephew
Yes.
by adoption. But all this was leading to that. It wasn't by chance that he was placed where he was. I think God told her, and that's why Miriam watched, even to the point that his own mother was paid
To nurse him.
to nurse him and bring
Yes.
him up. So it wasn't by chance, I don't think. I think it was God's plan for Moses, not just in what you're talking about, all these people that he was exposed to and all this, it was. But by the same token, when he rose up with his might
Yes.
to deliver, and he was exposed, he had to go and more or less unlearn all of that in a way for 40 more years
Yes.
in the wilderness to learn that it was not by might nor power, nor by education, but it was by God leading him that he would be able to deliver them.
Yeah.
But all of that was God's plan for Moses, you know, and it was in God's timing and in God's way, and I think he was led, Moses, all those women that were part of that were led
Yes.
of God to do that.
And really, when you consider what they did, they were brave to do that.
Yes.
Because kings back then had the authority. But I think we as human beings would think, oh God, how terrible, how terrible. My child is going to be raised by Pharaoh's daughter. And they don't even believe in God. So as soon as the nursing time is over, some books I have read says 2 years, some says it could go to 4 or 5. Then look where, I think we would have fretted, I think we would have cried, I think we would have worried to death about him. When God had everything under control and everything he learned and everything he did
Yes.
was making him a leader.
Yes.
Then in the end though, when he became the leader, he has his own brother and sister there to be leaders with him. And I'm especially thankful that God put Miriam in there, because a lot of times it looks like only the men lead and only the men do this or that. But I really feel like that Aaron and Moses included their sister and respected her as a God-fearing person also.
And she was, because that's what brought on the jealousy later of Miriam
Yeah,
and caused her to be afflicted with
the leprosy.
leprosy.
Yeah.
Is because of the jealousy, because Moses' wife came and different, and she felt her imposing in on her position
Oh, yes.
as one of the leaders.
She wanted to be one of the leaders. I would have wanted her spot if I had Moses and Aaron was my brothers. And talking about brothers and sisters, since my mom passed away, you know how you have to deal when somebody passes away. I have the best brothers and sisters in the world. The brothers show us respect. We try to show the brothers respect. We love each other. God has really put a love in our hearts for each other that it's just great. And so, but women have a few opinions and points on the Bible too. Any more comments?
About 3 weeks ago, it was raining, and I told Jerry, Jerry, look at all those millions of little raindrops out there. I said, what if God would have chose just to pour it out like buckets in different spots?
Oh, you said that.
Yes,
I
I
have thought
wrote
that
that.
too. I thought I don't want a bucket of water on my head, but I love raindrops on
And
my head.
sometimes those raindrops are huge, and sometimes they're just a little teeny tiny little.
It says when that water vapor changes to a liquid, those little there's raindrops in the cloud, but when they combine, they finally get heavy enough to drop down on your head as raindrops. So, and I got a grandchild that loves umbrellas too. Monica brought me an umbrella from Disney one year, and every time we went by my umbrella holder, he would grab it, and I'd try my best to keep it away from him, but I couldn't. Finally, he tore my umbrella up. My Disney umbrella's gone. I thought the next time I get Charlotte, and it rains in the summertime when it's a warm rain, I thought I'm purposely going to take her out and let her hold a little umbrella under the rain and tell her God made the clouds. Any more comments?
God just had it together, just all there is to it.
Yes.